Welcome back to the Real Estate Rundown with Richard Neese, where we help good people get to a better place. If you tuned into our first segment, you found out a little bit about me, about the Richard Neese team, and what we're trying to do. So we're going to get a little bit more into the actual real estate side in the second segment, where we're going to be talking about the benefits of using a real estate agent. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a story. I was working with a client the other day. They wanted to look at a house. They called me, and then they love the house. They want to put in an offer on it. So the first thing you always ask is, what sort of financing are you looking at? Well, they said, well, we're going to have cash. Well, that's great. That's a real estate agent's dream. You have cash. But I said, okay, well, do you have the proof of funds? Well, they said, well, we've got to sell our house first, and it's already we already worked out a deal with our neighbors, so we're good to go on that. And so I said, okay, well, let's try and work through that, and I'll write up an offer for this place. When I submitted the offer, contingent upon the sale of their home, the first thing that the other agent said was, well, let's see the contract. Let's see the contract on the other house so I can verify that everybody's on the up and up, everything's going to work out properly. And when I talked to this guy that was buying it, he said, well, we don't have a contract. Now, he happened to be an older gentleman. You know, he was kind of struggling through that process because, you know, I love back in the old days when a handshake was the way that you sold things. But nowadays there's so many minor details in there that can turn into major problems. So I said, well, let's see if we can get together with everybody involved and let's get a contract written up. Just that simple fact tells me that this fellow really needed a real estate agent on the front end, because we already have started running into problems with closing costs that aren't covered, which actually ended up being close to $6,000 that neither the buyer or the seller had accounted for, which, I mean, that's a huge difference. So now they've got to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, this is what I was supposed to walk away with. And the other side says, hey, this is what I was supposed to pay. So now they're renegotiating not only closing costs, but they're also renegotiating what stays, what sort of inspections are done. So there's so many details that are in this process that most people don't even realize are involved in buying or selling a home. And with that rolls us straight into the benefits of using an agent. An agent knows the process as a whole. I mean, Dominic is also a real estate agent, and he can attest for that. How many steps are in the process, Dominic?
It feels like 100, but so many people actually touch everything goes on down a real estate transaction. Everyone from the appraisers, the lawyers, the lenders, the home inspectors, and usually 3 or 4 contractors, depending on what else needs to be done. There's so many things that's involved in it. You need that professional to coordinate all these things. So you're busy working. You don't got time to go out and try to line up all these things. Get a professional to do that for you.
That's
Hire
right.
a realtor who knows what they're doing, who can handle it all, and do it professional and smooth.
That's it. You know,
it takes away the headache.
There's so many pieces in that puzzle. And if you are just pulling out your phone book or looking on Google or whatever you're doing for all these people, you don't know who's a reputable source, you don't know who's a good contractor, you don't know who a good attorney is, you really don't have any idea. But even breaking it down to the very basics, these folks didn't even have a contract to write up. All it was a handshake. So if you use your attorney, that's fine, get a contract written up, at least have an attorney write it up or look over the contract, because if you're not doing that, you're putting yourself in a world of hurt long term of what could happen. A simple thing that we ran across the other day was some people think that a termite bond is required, and some people think that just a wood infestation report is required. So that needs to be spelled out in the contract on what this is what we're paying for, this is what they're paying for. So there's tons and tons of steps in that. So we talked about the process as a whole, but also the network. So me personally, I probably have worked with 20 lenders over the past couple of years since I started real estate. So I know kind of the pros and cons of each one and what type of loans they do, what type of loans they don't do. And so a lot of times I can take a situation where somebody thinks that, oh, I can't get approved for a loan, and I can say, well, what's the issue? Why can't you do it? Is it credit score? Is it down payment? What's the real underlying issue? And I can say, well, you need to talk to this lender. If you talk to this lender, they specialize in low credit scores. So in that case, you know, one company may have said no, but another may say, yeah, that's great, we can make it work. So that network is so valuable. I was working with a lady, she called me about selling her home, and she said she has a tenant in there. I said, well, the first thing that I like to do is I like to see if we can keep the tenant in there. If they can buy the house, let's not make a move. I don't want to kick anybody out. In that case, she said, well, she's already talked to a bank and there's no way she can get approved. I said, well, at least let me talk to her. Let me see what I can do. And so what ended up happening, she talked to one of my lenders that specialized in what her need was. She got pre-approved on the spot. So that tells you how valuable that is. And so now we're not going to have to kick a tenant out that's got 2 little kids. So make her go find somewhere else to live. She's going to be able to stay in that house. There's not going to be a huge process involved as far as cleaning the house up, doing this, doing that. It's just going to be better all in all for everybody just because of one contact that I had. So note that if you have a real estate agent, they have a huge network that they can help. And another thing, Dominic and I were talking the other day, and we were talking about just the knowledge of the market as a whole. Most times when I come in, I can do a market assessment within 24 hours. I'll know what I think the house will bring, and then we can sell it for that. But on the buyer side, I can also tell you if something's overpriced or if it's priced at market value, which is huge. Dominic, what was the story you were telling me the other day?
Yeah, basically, I knew this guy who was going for sale by owner on his house because he didn't want to pay a realtor on it. And which is fine, that's his own prerogative, his own mistakes in that way, in my own personal opinion. But I was taking Richard in this house. It was a new build, and I let him know what was paid, what the house was selling for. And these people chose not to be represented in buying the house. And we both assessed the property as being $15,000 over market value. So if they were represented by an agent, they essentially... an agent would have came in there and would have said, hey, look, these is what values are going for in this market. They would have presented it to the home, the for sale by owner. He may not have liked it, he may have not, but the fact is that we would have looked out for the best interest of the buyers.
That's absolutely right. So the biggest thing is you want to have somebody that's a professional. You're not going to try and do all of your legal work by yourself. In most cases, you're not going to try and do that. It's worth it to have somebody that has the knowledge, that has the background, that has the skill, the education to take care of a huge transaction. I mean, that's very important, especially in real estate. I mean, you think the medical field, attorneys, all of these professionals that are out there, you're going to use somebody, you're going to pay them, but you're paying them for their expertise. And that's what a realtor is too. I mean, not everybody wants to cut off that 6% commission or 3% commission, but at the end of the day, it could cost you a lot more. I've got tons and tons of stories that I could tell you about that. But I think we're about to come up against a break. Please tune in on the other side. We're going to talk about some tips for selling your home and how to prepare that. We'll be right back.